Few moments late, we had some technical difficulties. I am Todd Bookspan on behalf of Mortgage Coach and Win by Noon. Welcome to our Friday Mastermind. And Dave will be joining us. Eventually, he'll try to pop in. He's out speaking today like Dave does. And so I brought over a really great friend of mine who you guys may recognize. I had him on probably about 2 years ago. But I've got my friend Kevin Kauffman. Now, before he jumps on, let me just tell you a little bit about Kevin because he's going to be too kind and too humble to say great things about him. First off, he leads a real estate team, Group 4610 Network. They all wear flip-flops, so they're way cooler than the rest of us. That's like, you don't wear shoes if you walk in their office or you're going to be ridiculed. And they're a $150 million team in multiple states. He leads a large group underneath him at eXp Realty. But more importantly, the reason I've got him here is he's one of the leading experts in the country on the iBuyers stuff, right? Open Door, Zillow Offers. And I wanted him to share that with you. He also happens to have his own podcast, Next Level Agents. He's had a few low-profile guests recently like Gary Vee. And lastly, he also oversees the Next Level Agents Facebook group, has over 25,000 real estate agents in it. They've got an awesome event that's going to be in Phoenix this year. And that'll be next year in April. So I'll have him mention that as well. So without further ado, welcome, Kevin.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I should have you do all of my introductions. You made me sound infinitely cooler than I really am.
Well, you are that cool, first off, and I want to do that. So real quick, I'm going to make a couple announcements before I start letting Kevin wow you with everything, because I promised Dave I would. When he jumps in, he'll probably redo his announcements. But number one is you'll notice Dave put a post into the group. He's got Donald Miller from Story Brand coming on next week, and he really wants some engagement around that. I'm actually like 3/4 of the way through that book. I've had a lot of people ask me about that book in the last 6 months. And so it's a great book and I'm really looking forward to that call, but take a look at Dave's post. He'd love you to check that out. Additionally, we talked last week about, with Dave's encouragement, about what metrics as a group should we be recording each week to try to figure out how to gain momentum through the rest of the year. And so when I was at Sales Master, I had a bunch of people twisting my arm. I had done a challenge through Win by Noon. It was free, and I'm bringing it back. So it's going to be called the Q4 Challenge. I was going to share my screen, but I'll just show it to you guys here. It's a Q4 Challenge. If you go over to the Win by Noon user mastermind group, you'll see that I've got it posted in there. It's going to kick off on Monday, and we are going to be tracking 4 things that Dave and I and you guys gave us input are really important to be recording. Number 1 is leads. Number 2, of course, for Dave, TCAs, and then applications and closed loans. We're not going to be recording all the metrics that we record in Win by Noon. We're kind of trying to keep it a little bit more simple, but would love anyone who wants to jump in, have some accountability, close out the year strong, have some momentum going into next year. Just head over to the group and jump in. Would love you to be part of the challenge. That is it. So, Kevin is a great friend of mine. A lot of you know that like I did that interview a couple Fridays ago with Josh Meadow. We actually did that from Kevin's office. I met Kevin years ago. He used to be the co-owner of a large real estate franchise. And we just kind of hang out, had a cup of coffee. That was cool. And then we didn't really reconnect until we went to the Genius Network annual meeting where the entrepreneur group that I'm in with Josh, where all of a sudden there was my good friend Kevin, who wasn't my good friend then, but a good acquaintance. And we've really become great friends over the last couple of years. And I've watched Kevin do a great job of executing on ideas, right? I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people who sometimes struggles with getting those great ideas out of my notebook and into action. And so it's been kind of fun to, have an opportunity to brainstorm with Kevin, mastermind with them, have a few nice meals, introduce him to Dave Savage, and have him here. But we didn't really talk about what he wanted to talk about today, but I wanted to put him on the spot about iBuyers, about his event next year, and anything else you want to talk about. So I'll shut up now. Here's Kevin Kauffman.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Todd. I appreciate it, man. So like I said, I think what I'm going to do from now on is anytime I speak, I'm just going to have you come with me, and you can do the intros if you don't mind. That would be
as long as I carry your suitcases as well.
Well, they don't have any shoes in them, so they're not that heavy. They a bunch of black T-shirts and shorts, so that's really all.
That's true. Steve Jobs outfit going on.
I do. So, man, thanks a lot for having me. So, you just mentioned a couple of things, iBuyers and podcasts and NLA, the Facebook group, which are all things that are important, definitely to me. most probably important though of that group is iBuyers, because I think that's impacting everybody in the industry, because it's, I mean, let's face it, they're making a dent more in some cities. You know, you and I think probably have little more of a look into the future of what iBuyers really are versus the rest of the country, since they Open Door started here over 5 years ago, as did OfferPad. And everything seems to start here in the Phoenix area, and they've made a real serious dent in our marketplace. And so some folks, depending on what part of the market, or excuse me, what part of the country you guys are in, you may be thinking like, hey, you know, iBuyers are no big deal, or yeah, they're here, but whatever, they don't offer enough money. It's, you know, they're just doing this or that, and or my agents aren't worried about them, but you know, they're a real deal. That's for sure.
Well, can you real quick tell them what an iBuyer is? So kind of what sparked the idea to have you on and talk about iBuyers is someone made a post maybe in this group or one of the other loan officer groups that I'm in about Open Door coming to their town. And so I kind of feel like this is a great opportunity for you guys as loan officers to hear Kevin as an expert talking about it, because whether they're already in your town, whether they're coming to your town, or whether you think they're never going to be in your town, you still need to be educated on what they are, what the challenges they are to your real estate partners, and also the challenge they may pose to you as a loan officer. So can you just get real basic for a minute and then keep going? Sorry for interrupting.
No, I think that's a great point, because it's relevant whether they're there or in your city, or if they never show up in your city. I still think it's relevant to understand what they are and what we can learn from them. So let me start by saying what they're not. What an iBuyer is not is they are not I'm going to say, quote, we buy ugly houses type of model, right? They are not the mom and pop investors that are looking to buy stuff at 60 or 70% of fair market value. So just want to be really clear by saying that's not what they are, because that is one of the most common misconceptions. What an iBuyer is truthfully, think of it, it's an investor. In this case, it happens to be an entity, a technology company that invests in real estate. By investing, what I mean by that is they are buying homes from consumers directly and relisting them, typically, not always, at a higher price. It's kind of like a very basic flip, if you will. If you've ever done a flip yourself where you kind of bought a home under fair market value, put some paint and maybe new flooring in, and went and saw a profit, that would be the most realistic, although that's not what they are either. What they are is they're a buyer, and they use technology to their advantage, the data that they're collecting, the analytics that they're collecting. The goal being to provide a smoother transaction to the consumer being the seller of the home in this case. So a lot of folks will go, okay, wait, so they'll think that either they're trying to get everything at a huge discount because they heard of one or two deals out of the 3,500 deals they did last month. They'll hear about one or two deals and assume that all of the deals are like that, where they're looking for big discounts, or they'll think, okay, well, they're just going to lose money on all the deals. It's kind of funny. Those are the two ends of the spectrum I hear. And the truth of the matter is they're not trying to lose money, but they're also not trying to make really big profits every single time that they buy and sell a house. So at their most basic, what they are, it's a real estate flipping investor, if you will, with the goal of providing a smoother, more user-friendly experience to that consumer.
Well, and the user-friendly piece of it is that if you're selling your home that way, you're not marching people through your house, right? They're not having to come through and you're not having to put the dog away and clear everything out. You also can pick your close date, right? They give you kind of a window within which you can close it out. And as you said it, they are, although you see online these quote unquote offers where they took $30,000 worth of fees, but you just said that that's not common. I mean, it seems like they're paying pretty close to market value.
Yeah. Especially here in Phoenix, you just said something. And so not to jump too far ahead, but from the consumer standpoint, and I think even as a realtor, probably even as a mortgage officer as well, if we're really thinking about this, what their goal is, they call it the 3 C's: convenience, certainty, and control, right? So they get to control the closing date. They've got the certainty of the closing happening. It's a cash buyer. They're not worried about it, a loan funding or someone losing their job or going out and buying a car the Friday before they're supposed to close. They're not worried about any of that. And then the convenience factor of not having people come through the home, having a sign in the yard, et cetera. So those are the 3 C's that these companies deliver to the consumer, right? And so that in it right there is the most basic way to describe their goals, right? That's what the consumer gets out of it, those 3 C's. And as we know, when we look at overall in the market, number one is they are paying very close to fair market value. The longer they are in a market, the better they get at valuing the homes and the offers that they're making, as well as the reduction, how the smaller their service fee gets. As an example, in Phoenix, where Todd and I are, Open Door started just over 5 years ago. They closed their first transaction, I believe it was August of 2014. And at the time, they were averaging about 12% transaction fees or convenience fees on all their deals, their first probably year or so in business. Fast forward into 2019, here we are today, they are averaging close to like 6.5 to 7.5% fee in fees, which isn't too much different than what I would charge as a realtor.
Yeah, I think that's the misconception, right? And I think it's there's got to be a way for us as loan officers to better understand it. And my thinking is a couple of things, right? Open Door, they like put lock boxes on the doors, right? So people don't even need a real estate agent to go look at those. Is that accurate?
Once they own the home, they do have unguided tours available. Not in all of their properties, but yeah, they're truthfully trying to make a convenient thing all the way through, right? So for the seller that they buy the house from, and then the buyer who eventually buys the house, they want to obviously control as much of that as they can. So that's why I say this is important to, doesn't matter just realtors and your realtor clients as mortgage professionals, but to you as a mortgage professional, because they're in the loan business as well. We all know Zillow has a mortgage company. Open Door has a mortgage company now. I don't think OfferPad will ever get there, but who knows? More of these companies, as they continue to grow, will probably look to disrupt the buyer side of the business as well too, which that involves all of us as realtors and mortgage professionals.
Yeah, we've seen that a couple times here with our team. We had one earlier this year where the client was coming in on a Monday to meet with a team member, and during that conversation, they were going to be handed off to a real estate agent. The gentleman's wife found the perfect house online on Friday night. Saturday, they walked into the Open Door property. There was a real estate agent there showing her clients the home. They made a connection. The real estate agent said, "Oh yeah, I know their team." And the person thought, "Oh, that means that maybe this is who they were going to refer me to." And they ended up jumping in. They closed the transaction with that realtor and with our team. But there's a risk to you as a loan officer. There's a risk to your partner. And I think part of that just comes down to the education piece. How would you, as a real estate agent, is your team educating your clients as you bring them in? I know you guys set them up into whichever one you're using, Sync or Boomtown now.
Sync, yeah.
Sync. All right, I want to make sure I get that right, since I know you go around and speak for Sync now that you say that.
Thank you.
iBuyer all over the country for the fine folks there at the Fidelity companies. But I think that there's got to be is there some scripting that your team is using when you're setting a buyer on a search, because you know that they may find one of these properties and you don't want them to stumble in there?
Yeah, the truth is, as you know, every agent on our team, because we have a fairly large team, so we have that, which means we have pretty much no control of what gets said during the consultations and on the phone calls, right? That said, what Fred is my business partner, what we have trained to for months, and truthfully, we waited too long, but for the last probably 6 months, if not longer, we have trained to very specific scripts, because where we're trying to take ourselves positioning wise with not only our current clients' sphere of influence, but our future clients, is to a place of where if they're even considering on the sell side or buy side working with one of these companies, that they would actually get to them through us. So we're actually we're going on the offensive, right? So with a potential seller, we're actually bringing them the offers ourselves to the listing appointments. We are now setting up 2-step listing appointments, as opposed to where we used to really try to do it in one appointment, because we are bringing literal offers from these companies. On the buy side, that's part of our, it's just a change in language for us and adding in Open Door and OfferPad, because part of our script and our consultation that we've always trained and taught to has been around making sure no matter the home, no matter who currently owns it, like that it goes through us first. And, we'll go get the information for them. We wouldn't ever hold anything back from them. And that's part of, that's part of our guarantee to people. So it's part of our scripting for sure. And it's, it's executed at different levels, if I'm being honest, on the ground floor, because not everyone operates at the same.
And so if you bring them an offer from one of these iBuyer companies, some of them will give you a commission, right? So it's not a full commission, but they'll give you something. And so that's why you're bringing it in, so you don't get nothing.
Yeah. So, well, not just that, because to be honest with you, here's the way I look at it. If I'm going to survive long-term, and I plan to, and I know the people on this call will too, otherwise they wouldn't be in a mastermind. You wouldn't pay for the education you pay for if you didn't plan to stay in business for a long time. There's going to be times where we're not going to make money on one of the transactions. And if that's that's the right thing for the consumer, that's what we're going to choose. We're going to tell the consumer we think that's the best thing for them. We're going to be our fiduciary, I guess is really what I'm saying, regardless, for first and foremost. That said, currently, that we get paid on most of the transactions. Open Door, as an example, they'll pay you 1% if you bring them a deal that you have listed before you have listing agreement, and they do not have a current offer from Open Door. Open Door will give you 1% if you don't collect a commission from the seller. You can also just collect a commission from the seller. We closed the deal last week where we got our full 3% commission, but we sold the house to Open Door. Now, for 1% or 2%, if you will, that still would have been a great deal, because I'm not spending money on marketing, not spending time, where I can't get, I have to worry about contingencies or anything like that. So especially when we've got someone who's buying and selling, in a lot of cases, it helps us to control that and move that transaction a little bit faster. And the way I look at it in the listing business, if I can do, let's just say 1% for sake of conversation. If I can do this for 1% and I don't have to advertise it, I don't have to spend money on that, I'll do that all day long, because I'm probably gonna make more money that way in the long run, to be truthful with you. And it's gonna add a convenience thing for my seller. And now the thing I know that my seller, my client, who then also becomes my buyer, I know that they're talking, and that, when they hear everyone in the Phoenix area, and I'm sure a lot of other markets now too, the consumers are asking, like, what's going on with these companies, Zillow, Open Door, OfferPad, et cetera. When I have my clients saying, well, you know what, my real estate agent actually still helped me actually get through them, and then helped me through that transaction. And it was great. And so that's kind of our belief there.
Seems like a great value proposition, right? I mean, again, here someone is, it's, going on the holidays, they're like, well, I don't want to have to worry about this during the holidays, but they could, in theory, find an iBuyer, make a contract, sell their home after the holidays, and then, be off to the races with with their home purchase. Yeah,
absolutely. It's, the reality is there's just time. And again, not only that, there's that convenient, or that, you get the control of the time factor, but it's the certainty as well, and just the convenience of the whole thing. Like, the thing that I think as professionals, both in the mortgage and real estate sales space, that we can tend to forget is that buying and selling real estate can kind of be a pain in the butt, especially when you're selling. It's just not convenient to have people walk through your house. I don't care if you get 10 offers. Getting 10 offers is not convenient, because then there's a lot of paperwork to filter through, and half the offers are no good, are below par anyways. And so we got to understand, we do this every single day. And whether you're closing one deal a month or 100 deals a month, you can start to get a little cold to the whole process and forget that this is really kind of a pain in the butt, no matter how good your customer service is. And I know some of you guys rock at customer service, and some of my friends rock at customer service too. And selling a house is still kind of a pain in the butt, or buying a house can still be a pain in the butt. It's a lot of paperwork.
Well, so if I'm a loan officer and my realtor's referred me a client, I've got that client pre-approved, and that client says, hey, I'm going to list my house. I'm thinking about calling one of these places, whoever it is in their market, Open Door, let's just use them as the example. Any good script that you would give to a loan officer to make sure that they get that back to the real estate agent so that they don't actually go rogue on them?
Yeah, I not too dissimilar than, let's say they were going to go call another real estate agent or something because they saw that someone had a house listed. I think the script has got to sound something like, well, I think that could potentially be a great avenue for you to explore. All situations are different. What you want to do is call Todd and make sure that Todd goes and gets the offer for you, because Todd obviously is going to work for you on your behalf, as opposed to you going and kind of working on your own behalf unrepresented with them. Your best bet is to go through your realtor, Todd.
And should you say anything about the fact that the seller will potentially pay them, or the buyer will pay them a commission, or just stay out of that conversation?
I don't know. Do you guys stay in that? I would say, as a mortgage professional, if you're in that conversation now, then I guess it'd be okay. I would think that maybe is not part of the conversation usually, but perhaps it is. So if it is, then I would say it's probably fine. But my instinct tells me to not even really cover that.
I mean, that's mine too, right? I mean, you wouldn't want your loan officer talking about normal real estate commission, right? That's out of their lane. So, I always kind of believe that you gotta know your lane, you gotta stay in it. And I think the other part, guys, is to make sure that you're asking your partners, hey, how would you want me to respond, right? There's a lot of things that Kevin is saying that now you can bring back and ask your real estate partners about their experience with it. Hey, what do you know about iBuyers? Hey, have you worked with any yet? Hey, what do you want me to tell our clients when they start asking me about it, right? This is all just information that I want you all to be bringing back to your partners so that, that you sound great. And so if you guys have any questions, I'm attempting over here to watch Facebook, and we've also got a bunch of you in Zoom as well. So feel free to jump in and ask any specific questions about that. It seems like there's a lot of little tiny investor companies jumping up there trying to compete. Is that any feedback or opinion on that?
I think that they're smart for doing so. I don't know that it'd be any different than a local coffee shop opening 200 feet away from the new Starbucks. Seems like it might be a good move. There's always been investors, and I think the market being as positive as it has been in most areas, number one, that just brings out more investors, right? Because everyone thinks that they know what they're doing when prices are always going up. So that's probably also part of it. I think that the more relationships you have, the better. The more options we have for our consumer, the better. And we should be educated on what those options are, right? I'm a big proponent of, let's say, not just aligning with one iBuyer company and only getting offers from them. The way I look at it is, if I'm a real estate professional in a market and I know that Zillow, Open Door, and OfferPad exists there, and maybe even one or two others that are, say, like a Wedgwood or something like that. Like I need to, if I'm aware enough to go get one offer, I should be aware enough to go get all 3 or 4 offers, right? And find out what's most viable. Help my consumer figure out what's most viable for them.
It just gives them more money for the next house. I think that totally makes sense. So one of the things I already said is you're traveling around and you're teaching about iBuyers all over the country. And I know when we went to that baseball game where your Dodgers lost to the Diamondbacks, who are really pathetic. So that was super embarrassing for you, I think.
Wow. I mean, it had to happen once this year.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. That's why I was there. We picked that magic night. But when I know nothing about baseball, but I figure we might as well have a little fun.
That was cold, man.
But you said, hey, originally you were just supposed to speak for a little amount of time when you're talking to these real estate agents, but then they had so many questions that you were speaking for a lot longer every time you were out speaking. What are like the top questions that the agents are asking you when you've got a room full of agents? What's
so funny is, I don't know if I said this to you or not, but I said it to my business partner, Fred, right after there was a specific day. It was in Portland that I taught. And I said, Fred, it's like I just went back to 2008 and I just taught our first short sale class again. And he said, what do you mean? I said, that's the level of misunderstanding that is out there right now amongst most realtors, same as short sales were in 2008 when nobody knew what was going on. And I say that because we taught on short sales for years and traveled the country teaching short sales. That was where I built my business and cut my teeth in the industry. And so what's funny, Todd, is the questions, the most common ones, are basic. They're super basic. Everything from, well, how much are they going to offer, to what if there's repairs that are needed, to is it negotiable, to are they going to just try to get rid of all realtors? Like there's some real basic stuff that I think realtors are letting creep into their mind because it's the great unknown for them. And as silly as it sounds, it's why Fred and I have just gone heavier on our podcast around iBuyer information, is because we realize that's the level in most markets. Most markets don't have the 5 years of penetration or even a year or two of penetration like some of the other markets when it comes to these iBuyers, and they don't understand what they're really doing. And there's so much misinformation they're being told. Agents are being told by their brokers or their franchise companies that these companies are bad and they're out for you and they're going to take advantage of the realtor and the consumer. The truth is, I don't think anything's all good or all bad. One thing that Fred and I have really tried to drive home recently is not to label any of these companies as good or bad. They're just options, and we should probably stay away from good or bad and just know that they're an option for the consumer. And if I'm doing my job, I'm going to be the conduit for my consumer to get to these options.
All right. There's like so many places I can go. First off, hear what he just said. There's no good or bad. There's just options. That's a great script for us to be using on loans as well, right? Think about that. Hey, there's no good or bad. There's just options. I think let's give a quick plug on your podcast and your Facebook group and your event, because I think that's really important. I know you guys just launched this week an iBuyer segment of your podcast. I think that for you guys all listening, it's just a great way for you to stay up to date with the people who are going to be super connected to it. So why don't you give the info on how to find out and be part of all those things?
Thanks, man. So our podcast, if you'd like to download it, it's called Kevin and Fred's Next Level Podcast. Mr. Bookspan has been a guest. Mr. Savage and I are yet to get my schedule correct. I messed that up actually the first time. So Dave will be a guest here soon too. But we've had some really awesome guests. And quite a few of those guests over the last year have been truthfully other people that are experts in iBuyers, like Leo Pareja, the founder of Remine. I've had a couple employees from Open Door now. I'm working on some Zillow folks to be guests here soon. And so Kevin and Fred's Next Level Podcast is the name of the podcast. We just started a 2 times a week segment called iMinute because they're just 1 minute snippets of basic understanding stuff about iBuyers. We just come to realize all the questions that we get, people don't understand a lot of the basic things with these companies. And so everything from what is an iBuyer, I think today we talked about cost structure. Today was just episode 2 of that. So Kevin and Fred's Next Level Podcast is where you can find the iMinute segment, as well as the rest of our show, which includes interviews and business tips and kind of newsy industry headline type stuff. And then our podcast, our Facebook group is called Next Level Agents. So that's the name of the group, Next Level Agents, about 25,000 people in there, mostly realtors, some lenders, some title folks, but probably 95% or more realtors. And then we do an annual event, and our 3rd annual event will be April 23rd, 24th, 25th of 2020 here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And you can find all the information for that at nextlevelagents.com. Just click on the event tab, nextlevelagents.com.
Awesome. And I'll make sure I talk more about that event as we get closer to it, because most likely I will be there.
Oh, I think we lost you, Todd. All right. I think we lost Todd, or we lost me, and I don't know it. Sorry, guys. I'm going to go over to the Facebook group if you can still hear me. All right, guys. If you can still hear me, will you? I don't know if we just lost Todd or if we lost me. All right, great. Thank you. So until Todd figures it out, I guess I'll just kind of jump on. It looks like he just totally lost his connection, and he'll jump back. So let's see, we were talking about the Facebook group. Guys, happy to answer any questions, anything that'll help you with your real estate agent partners, or just questions that you might have personally. Please let me know. I'd love to be a resource for you when it comes to what's going on here with the iBuyers and in the market. All right. Just glad it was Todd that had the misconnection, not me. Love that guy. All right. Here he is. He's coming back. You're back, buddy.
Man, there's nothing more embarrassing than getting kicked off your own webinar. All of a sudden, I'm hardwired in too, so I'm on my phone right now. So that's kind of crazy. I apologize for jumping off, but I knew you're a pro, so you would just take it and run with it. So you probably said some really cool things while I was gone.
I basically made fun of you and just stalled. So
nothing.
But great job, Kevin.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm gonna make sure I leave it over here off my computer. All right, so I don't want to, interrupt any train of thought you had, but one of the things that you said before I let you do your next level agent commercial is you were talking about the fact of that it was almost like short sales all over again. You were getting all these basic questions. So let's answer a couple of those for the people here. Are offers, when someone gets an offer from an iBuyer, negotiable?
They are negotiable like anything else. I think of it like this. First of all, I'm a big believer that everything in life is negotiable. So there's that piece of it too. Does it mean that they're going to give? No, it's no different than a regular buyer and seller. It's always negotiable whether or not the other companies or the other party wants to move off of their initial offer. That's the thing. I think what I know about this, a lot of times some of the misconception about the pricing will come, and this, I'm going to tie this back into prices and negotiation, comes because the seller submits on their own behalf. And I don't know if you guys had ever had a scenario where you met a seller of a home. And I know you mostly deal with buyers, but your buyers become sellers and vice versa. The seller thinks that their house is maybe a little bit nicer than what it really is. Like they forgot to mention that there's a bunch of cracked tiles on the roof, or there's a bunch of deferred maintenance. Well, just like anything else, that goes into consideration, right? And so, but when people request an offer on their own, not through a realtor, they're presenting their house as it's amazing, right? I got the best one on the block. And so those offers come in high, and then what happens is they get lowered after inspections. While it's not your typical inspection period, it's still an inspection. They just happen to be doing it themselves. And either the fees go up or the price comes down to make up for that, because there are maintenance and deferred maintenance and repairs, et cetera. And so there's negotiation in probably every single iBuyer deal.
Well, that makes sense. What about repair wise? I mean, it's normal. My perception is it's normal repairs they would have to do. And so therefore it's not anything crazy, but am I wrong about that?
Yeah, you're right. That said, sometimes they don't have stuff totally dialed in, and they can make mistakes. Like, just to give you an example, we had a deal with Open Door last month. Keep in mind, Open Door bought 560 homes in Phoenix last month. 560 homes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, they sold another 535. One of the homes that they bought was one of our clients, and they after their inspection, they wanted was it $10,000 or $15,000 credit for something wrong with the roof. But we knew that there wasn't that big of an issue with the roof. And so what Jill, our amazing administrative manager and transaction coordinator extraordinaire, did, just went and got 2 different bids from roofers, turned them in, and essentially that $10,000 or $15,000 request, I forget what it was, literally went down to $500. And it was just an oversight. Like, I truthfully don't believe that they were trying to get one over on our client. I think the person, just like anybody else, sometimes they do inspections, they go, oh yeah, that's a bigger deal than it is. They didn't spend a lot of time on it. It happens when you do a lot of deals. And so which is another reason why our clients still need us even when they sell to these companies, is so we can represent their best interests. Because by the way, even at that $10,000 reduction, it still would have been a decent deal for our client, for them. They still would have felt like they were getting a good deal. But instead they got a good deal and have an extra $9,500 in their pocket.
Well, on the flip side too, it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, so I'm not as involved in this piece of it, but they're fixing up the homes, right? They're putting back homes that have new carpet and new paint. And so from an inspection perspective, is there less stuff when you're bringing a buyer to those on the Binzer, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, theoretically. So when you're representing a buyer with one of these companies, theoretically, they're not buying homes that have, unlike your traditional investor or flipper, they are not buying homes that require major renovation. A lot of them have very tight constraints. Like it's got to be a small budget for them to even buy the home. Like if it's going to cost, say, more than, and I'm going to make a number up, $30,000, they won't buy it because that's out of their scope of what they feel that they are excellent at right now. And so the thought process is, yeah, there's probably less wrong with the house that they bought. But it does, obviously we got to still do our own due diligence, but the theory is that there should be less to deal with.
No, I think that makes sense. And as far as when there's only one or two iBuyers in a market, do you feel like that impacts the offers and the percentage below what retail would be, or do you feel like they're still coming in aggressive?
No, I believe that what impacts it is the number of transactions that individual iBuyer, so call it Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow, has done in that market, because the more deals they do, the better their data gets. So it's not really about the competition level for them, because they still have to, they're still competing with all of the other buyers in the market.
No, that makes sense. And you mentioned that over 500 purchases and 500 sales here in Maricopa County last month. Any idea as a percentage in our market what iBuyers are currently?
7. Well, Open Door alone is 7%.
So think about that, guys, right? That's a significant percentage of our market. Plus, this is where Zillow started their Zillow Offers program, right? So if you probably don't have it in your market, but if you go to get your Zestimate in Phoenix, right below the Zestimate, it says get a Zillow cash offer, right? So they made it really big so that your clients are going there. So think about how that might impact your clients if you're not protecting them from going online, right? If you're not encouraging your client, hey, don't look at that website, it may be inaccurate, whatever link your realtor gave you to search for properties is, because you're trying to insulate them, right? You don't want them to ask the listing agent a question because they don't realize that their data is getting sold. That's one of Josh Metal's scripts that I got from him, where he just said, hey, client, don't register, don't click those buttons. Your data is getting sold. Make sure you reach back out to your real estate agent, right? Because no one wants their data sold. Do you have any better scripts for that, Kevin, or different scripts?
That's a pretty damn good script, man. I should have figured Josh would have a great script like that. That guy's a genius. That's a really good one. Hey, I noticed in the Facebook group, there's a couple of questions. Would it be okay if I hit those?
Yeah, go for it. Because since I'm on my phone, I don't see those right now.
Cool. So I'm just going to start with Kyle. Please recap if iBuyers purchase your listings and then flip them or rent them. They flip them, Kyle. So an iBuyer is just a term. It's a term, right? It was made up for essentially these companies that flip homes. They do not want to hold inventory. Now, like in Phoenix, and I know a lot of other markets, there are other institutional investors that they are buying to hold and rent through these big like REITs and funds. But the iBuyers, specifically Zillow, Open Door, OfferPad, Knock, some of these other companies, they are buying to then turn around and sell. So they are not holding the inventory. At least they don't want to hold the inventory. That would be bad for them. They've got to keep their money moving because the way they get to profitability in the future is by having done a ton of transactions and being able to keep that money flowing through that and all of the other services that go with it. So great question, Kyle. Next, Danielle asked if it was true if they had any sort of specific kind of home and that they aren't buying everything. That's very true. So that we refer to that as their buy box. Most of these companies, if they're in your market, will tell you what their general buy box criteria is. So let's say, for an example, single family homes, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, no pool. Now that's not anybody's buy box. I'm just giving you that as an example. Most of these companies, honestly, I just recently found out Zillow will buy condos, and so will Open Door. A lot of people, we thought for years, literally for years, that most of them wouldn't buy condos. And now for sure, Zillow and Open Door are buying condos, not at the same rate they're buying single family homes, but there are scenarios. So they do have a specific kind of home. Essentially, think about it this way: when they're first newer in a market, the kind of home they're going to buy, like, it's going to be a very small percentage. And as they get better and better and better at pricing and selling and their process for getting homes turned over, they can start to expand that box. So there's a much wider buy box in the Phoenix market. Say then they just opened, I think it was like Salt Lake City this week, Open Door did. And I want to say that Zillow opened in Tampa this week. So their buy box in those new cities are going to be really tight compared to both of those companies started in Phoenix, and where their buy box is going to be a little bit bigger. So yes, great question. They don't buy everything. Danielle also asked how this impacts FHA buyers when they list these homes for sale again. Are they usually listed in less than 90 days? They are. So no different than what you're dealing with now with any other flipper, if you will. You do have that FHA rule to deal with.
Man, look at you quoting loan guidelines. That's awesome. The good news is that you don't have to worry about a second appraisal, because they're not going to be doubling the price based on how their models work. I would guess probably 99.9% of the time.
If not a higher percentage than 99.9. Like, yeah, I bet you that it's probably even never happened. So one other question was, Tony asked if we could talk about how iBuyers are going to transition into let's get you qualified with our mortgage partner too. It's happening. It's literally happening. As an example, Open Door bought a mortgage company, and they're not being aggressive with it yet, but they're not just saying, hey, we want to give you the loan to buy our home, but we want to be your lender on any home that you buy, no matter who you are. So because these companies have gone out and built brand equity and with consumers, they're able to do that. And I know maybe saying the word Zillow already owns a mortgage company, so we know that's not like that's a secret. But Zillow's obviously got that planned, and I'm sure any of these companies they're able to get to scale right now. Truthfully, it's Open Door and it's Zillow. Redfin to a much lesser degree, because they're not really, iBuyer isn't the focus of their business, at least not right now. Those are truthfully the big ones that we have to, I guess, I don't want to say worry about, but deal with more often. OfferPad is not as much of a factor, and they don't have a mortgage company. So,
well, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, it comes back to this whole idea of getting to the consumer first, right? And so, you have to be narrow. You guys have to be narrow focused on your database, right? Those clients that you served in the past, and you need to be out there educating them on this stuff, right? Because that way if you can get the client who's thinking about selling because you did your annual mortgage review, and then you can refer them back to Kevin for the listing and let them know, even if they're thinking about selling to an iBuyer, that Kevin can handle that transaction. Then Kevin is going to make sure they come back to you, versus if they go direct to Zillow, they go direct to, Open Door, any of these companies that have a mortgage company. Guess what? If they never call you because you haven't kept in touch with them, then they're absolutely going to refer to their mortgage company at some point, and you're absolutely going to lose on that next transaction. And I mean, we all know that, and we just all have to make sure that we're actually doing that, right? I mean, you guys are digging on your database, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Bill Thompson, if I could just ask a really great question, is this an inevitable disruption that will cause the average commission on listings to fall? Now, here's my disclosure. My crystal ball is broken. I dropped it years ago, and I'm going to say yes. Like if you just held the gun to my head and said, bet one way or the other, my money's on yes, it's going to fall. I believe that is one of the things as listing agents, or just as realtors in general, that we are dealing with in the coming years. I mean, we're experiencing it now. It's just not much of a movement yet, but it is moving for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think anytime you have someone who comes in and with that big of a percentage of business, right? If 7% is going to one of the iBuyers here in Phoenix, those people all have friends, right? They're talking about it. And as it grows through the community, viral through conversation, right? And they've got a lot of money to spend on advertising, right? They actually do physical mailers. I've gotten them at my house. They're on billboards. They're social media. So your clients know about that. And so therefore it's absolutely going to impact it, because that's going to become the new norm.
You can't escape it. And that's a point I'd like to just talk about. There's two other questions I'd love to get to, if I could, and I'll go fast. But I was at an event last week in Los Angeles, actually ran into Miss Todd somehow, but ran into Dave in San Diego on my way to an event in Los Angeles. And there's some other really great real estate agents there that I really respect. And for this 2 days, the overwhelming theme, and these were some people that were selling a heck of a lot more real estate than me, that the overwhelming theme was, I've got to go fight my battle downstream because I can't outspend these guys. I'm never going to out lead generate and out market Opendoor, OfferPad, Zillow, et cetera. I just can't do it, especially in the markets where they've been for a while. And so I'm spending more money and more resources with my current database, my clients, my sphere of influence, et cetera. That's the battle that has to be won. And I got to tell you, like, Fred and I have been preaching that to our team nonstop, and I'm not letting go of that one. Todd knows now. Todd I just do it because Todd and I love marketing, right? So Todd sees my direct mail at this point now too, that I've never done in my career. We are going after the people that we already know and like and trust and do business with already. Yeah, look at that. There you go.
Look, I have one here on my desk.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great postcard. It's a great direct mail piece. That's the world's most interesting postcard. So, Bill, I agree. Less productive realtors will leave the industry. I think we're going to see that a lot over the next couple of years. There was one other question from Eddie saying, he said he doesn't have a lot of iBuyers here in Napa. How can he prepare his realtors for the iBuyers that are coming? Well, there's going to be some markets, and maybe Napa's one of them, Eddie, where they never show up. Here's what I look at it. Whether they show up or not, I think this is an opportunity for us to treat them like a case study, because what these companies are doing they're meeting consumer demand. And so if we can learn from them and figure out how can we use our what we have in our business to meet the consumer's demands that these companies are meeting, we're going to win. And so that's what I look at it like that. And potentially it's a way to look at, maybe it's another piece of my business, because eventually commission compression will happen everywhere. If it happens in the big markets, it'll start to happen in the smaller markets, even though the iBuyers may not be there. And so realtors, I know for me, investments, both long-term holds and flips are part of our 2020 and beyond plan, because I'm not going to just live off of my gross commission income. I'm not going to do that. Our business needs to have other legs to it. And, some of our businesses already do, but specifically, I believe that the gross commission income ceiling is going to come down. And so that means I've got to go fill that delta. If I'm going to have the business that I want to have. And then maybe the most important question, Todd, that I saw there that I saved for last, or at least last that I can remember, was tell me more about the NLA live event, which is, if I could, for 10 more seconds. Totally broker agnostic event. We bring in speakers that not even in the industry, bring in some of the best speakers that we found. I'm a little biased because I like to handpick the speakers and curate what's going to be taught there. And we do that a lot because I'm pretty familiar with the 25,000 people in our group and kind of have my thumb on the pulse of what's going on. And so we bring in speakers and agents from all over the country, from really all over US and Canada, and from all companies. It's very broker agnostic, brokers kind of safe space that is content rich, content heavy, because I have a bias towards that. I came from a brand where everything was about even though it was great events, everything was about the brand and signing up for the other thing that they had to sell you, and not as much about how can I improve your business. And so the focus of our events are to how to improve your business. And we try to aim it for everyone. As an example, this year at our event, we had 2 breakout rooms going at all times on day 2. And they were wildly opposite. As an example, it might've been how to sell 100 homes as a solo agent, while the other one in the other room, it was like growing an expansion team like ours, right? So we try to make sure we hit all of the needs of the people in the room, not all, but as much as we can, wide scope, and then also have a lot of great general session keynote stuff. And end of rant and commercial.
Well, that's good. And I think, I did it when you guys did the first one. I did a mastermind the day before the event for mortgage folks. And so maybe I'll just throw it out there now that, ping me if you guys are thinking about going. If I, maybe we get enough of us together, we can do a piggyback event the day before. You're already flying in. It's going to be beautiful weather here at that time. Of course, now it may rain because I said that. And I just know, I already know who the speakers were the last couple of years. And have you guys leaked any of the speakers yet this year? I think there's some faces on the announcement.
I don't know if we have, but
all right. Well, that won't put you on the spot then.
Yeah, I promise they'll be good. There'll be nobody bad.
All right. Well, I know you'll be on stage, so there's just nothing wrong with seeing that.
I don't. We'll see. We'll see if they let me talk again this year.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that always could be the case. I'm just I'm peeking here to see if there's something in chat. Let me see.
Yeah, Jen wants to know if you can repeat the title of the book that you mentioned. Was that Building a Story Brand?
Yeah, Building a Story Brand. It's Donald Miller, and if you look inside of the Mastermind, the Productivity Mastermind group here, you'll see that Dave's got a post around it right now, and it's a great book for really how to lead your clients through the process as a guide versus making it about you. That was, really one of my number one takeaways, and it's something I think you'll use in lots of places in your business, not just in your conversations and scripting with clients, but also with your website and with, other social media stuff that you will do going forward. And I've heard a lot of conversation around it already in this group. So that is going to be a great call that Dave is doing next week. So take a look at that post. All right. We got 4 minutes left. I feel like it's kind of flown by, and it's, you guys are awesome. Like, that's the most questions I think we've gotten in a long time. And that was really what I was looking for out of this conversation, right? I feel like if realtors have all these questions for Kevin when he's going out and speaking, I know that you all have it, and that your realtors have those questions as well. And so outside of your podcast and your Facebook group, Kevin, where else can they get information on this?
So I think the very best place to go get kind of a formal education, if you will, because what Fred and I put out, I'm working on a little workbook for realtors, but truthfully, it's going to be free. I'm not selling anything with it. If you want to go get more of a formal education, I think the best place to go is to irealestatepro.com, which is, you at least know, you've got to know Kenny Klaus and Dan Noma, and they work with all of these companies and have created a course, a certification course called IREP, which is short for iReal Estate Pro. I want to say it's like $300 or $400. I paid for it, went through it, paid full price, by the way. It's amazing. They've got an ongoing continuity thing where they're constantly bringing in more education, keeping you up to date. Because that's the other thing with iBuyers is stuff changes literally sometimes daily, for sure weekly. And so irealestatepro.com, if you want to give a discount code, I don't get anything for it. We just get discount. They just give a discount. They can use a code. It's NLA 2019, NLA 2019. If you know anybody who wants to go through their formal education, it's got to be 5 hours or so, 5-6 hour course. If you can actually just sit down and went through all the modules at once, really good, really in-depth detail, everything from the history to a lot of tools that they give you once you complete the course. They've got like a little toolbox. So I think IREP or irealestatepro.com is probably the best place to go to besides our podcast or Facebook group.
Well, and I so appreciate you spending time here. I think, it's one of the things that I'm grateful for. I know that you're super busy. You're traveling more and more, doing your EXP thing, and then going out and teaching the iBuyer classes with Fidelity. Any upcoming events in any areas that you have on your calendar that we should let this group know about?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Seattle, I think technically Bothell, Washington on November 6th.
There you go. So if you guys are in Washington and you want to connect up with Kevin, that's a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll be there. I'm going to go hang out in Bellingham to go spend some time with a buddy of mine. And then I'll be in Seattle for another day or two just because I've got a lot of friends in the area. So if any of you are there and want to grab a cup of coffee at Vivace, which is the best coffee on the planet, let me know and I'll meet you there for a cup of coffee.
All right. Well, I just want to say thanks to you, Kevin. I want to say thanks to all of you for your engagement today. Couple of reminders, jump in there, look at Dave's post on Story Brand, jump over to the Win by Noon user mastermind group, be part of this Q4 challenge. I'm committed to help you have the rest of the year be great, as well as get some momentum into 2020. Thanks, Marcy, behind the scenes. On behalf of Mortgage Coach Dave, his whole crew, and Win by Noon, thank you guys for being here. We will see you next week here on the Friday Mastermind Call.